The Shibuya Incident arc is Jujutsu Kaisen's second super arc and by far its best at the moment. I'll start with the good and then go to the bad. Mekamaru was fleshed out more in this arc. At the beginning, we learn he was the mole, but he still fights the curses and even assists the sorceress post-mortem during the Shibuya Incident. Nobara was also fleshed out, and her backstory was given to us later in this arc. The next thing I very much enjoyed was Gojo being sealed right at the start of the incident. Gojo is broken, and that is not a good thing, so finding a way to nerf him so that other characters can struggle and shine was a brilliant idea. The way it changed the sorcerer's plan was also cool. And finally, the fact that they couldn't even rescue him at the end is a good way to show how outclassed they were by their opponents, and a great way to keep Gojo out of the story. The next quality is obviously the fights. Staying true to my depiction of a super arc, there are a good amount of epic, life-threatening battles where the villains are superior to the heroes, forcing the latter to fight tooth and nail to survive. But there is a slight issue with the arc being a super arc, and that's the career-defining battles. I feel like only a few characters got them. Yuji, Todo, Mahito, and Chozo were the only ones that got this. And considering how many characters were in the arc, this is a little disappointing. But back to positives. The fights were gritty, had great choreography, and some had wonderful tactics. Gojo using his domain expansion for 0.2 seconds was a cool concept. Yuji and Megumi versus Awasaka felt like a JoJo fight that required tactics over brute force thanks to the creative inverse curse. Yuji vs Chozo was an epic 1v1 with great martial arts and good intelligence for Yuji. All the sorcerers struggling against Dagon was a great battle. Megumi vs Toji was short but badass. And finally, Yuji and Aoi vs Mahito is easily the best fight of the story so far. The way some of these fights are resolved is kinda interesting. For example, the Chozo fight, the Dagon fight, and the Toji fight don't simply end by the hero surpassing the villain. Chozo wins against Yuji, but he's interrupted by memories. Toji comes out of nowhere and saves everyone from Dagon, and Toji's soul takes over and commits suicide to stop fighting his son. I really appreciate how the fights give the characters permanent damage. Naobito gets his arm cut off and is later burnt by Gojo, along with Nanami and Maki. Yuji, Nobara, and Maki are all permanently scarred during this arc. Aoi and Inumaki lose their arms. Nanami is killed, and Naobito dies after the arc ends. It really drives home the weight of the arc. I mentioned Toji before, and I really like his and Sukuna's unpredictability. Toji is summoned by one of the enemy curse users to be a puppet, but he quickly takes over and starts fighting everyone he meets. His unpredictability adds excitement to the arc and was used very well. Sukuna's unpredictability was a mixed bag. I like how when he was summoned, he kills a whole bunch of people and causes trouble for the heroes, but at the same time, he does a lot for the heroes, which definitely bothers me. He's supposed to be an antagonist, yet he kills Jogo, Haruta, and even fights Mahoraga to save Megumi. The first two were especially weak decisions. For the last, we know that he's interested in Megumi, but we don't know why, so when reading this arc, it feels like a weak excuse to have Sukuna solve problems for the heroes. This arc had a lot of interesting new powers. New curse techniques like inverse, projection, and falling blossom emotion were cool. Yuji's strange ability to implant false memories into his opponent's head was shown before, but most people, including me, assumed that was just Todo being weird. If this is his curse technique, it would be pretty interesting, especially since it's not a physical attack. Megumi finally used Mahoraga after considering using it a couple of times in the past. His inability to control it created nice chaos for the story, like Toji. It even almost killed him, but due to Sukuna's unknown motives, his saving Megumi weakened the latter's suicidal last-ditch effort. Mahito using Black Flash and Spirit Body made me actually appreciate his character, and Yuji learning how to control Divergent Fist was cool as well. Finally, the intense rivalry between Yuji and Mahito was done very well. While I am a little upset that Mahito killed Nanami, the latter at least got a chance to kick some ass before kicking the bucket in this arc. Also, Mahito being the one to kill Nanami and almost kill Nobara, two people that Yuji was close to, just fueled his hatred for the curse and was good writing. I never really liked Mahito due to his attitude and design, but when he used the Spirit Body, showing that he has been getting stronger as well, and had no fear using domain expansion on Sukuna, I really gained respect for him. He looked badass with the Spirit Body and even had parallels to Yuji, making them look even more like battle manga rivals. Yuji even says that both of them are the same. I also love Todo coming in to support Yuji during the fight, emotionally and physically. It drives home their brotherly bond. Now for the bad. While I like that they sealed Gojo, the fact that they needed a powerful MacGuffin to do so, basically a kryptonite, was bad. This is mostly an issue with Gojo's balancing and not the arc itself. The next problem is Nobara failing. She's presented as a competent sorcerer and got nearly as much screen time as Megumi up until now. She's supposed to be the third main character, yet she keeps failing. Her win-loss record was already questionable before this arc, but this one made it worse. While her teammates are kicking ass in multiple fights, she loses both of her only fights in this arc, needing to be saved both times. This wouldn't be as bad if her record wasn't already mediocre. As of now, her losses outweigh her wins, and 2 of her wins were team battles. I don't think she's won a single battle on her own, and she gets 2 chances in this arc but loses both of them. It honestly would have been better if she just didn't fight at all in this arc. This leads me to my next point. While the arc had a lot of fights, many of them were given to just a few characters, while several others were sidelined. During the incident, Toto was the only character to get a proper fight from Kyoto. Everyone else was absent for most of the arc and just gotten a few shots at the very end. For Tokyo, I'm fine with Panda not fighting because he already had a solo fight before, but Inumaki hasn't, so that was a little disappointing, especially since he was heavily wounded off-screen. Sukuna helping the heroes was another problem, but I already mentioned that. My next issue was the Mahito rivalry was not concluded in a satisfactory manner. Everything was going so well. All the story had to do was make Yuji kill Mahito, but instead, Geto shows up and absorbs Mahito. I don't know if he'll come back, but if this is the end, that was a missed opportunity. Finally, the ending of the arc felt very rushed. Big reveals happened so quickly. A bunch of characters showed up in one spot and started fighting, and then Yuki, a new character, shows up and saves the day like a Deus Ex Machina. She was technically shown in a flashback before, but she had never appeared in the present, and this felt so unsatisfying. Having a character like Okotsu show up may have still felt a little cheap, but it would have been much better since we know him from the prequel and he's been mentioned before. Even Kenji Hakari would have been a better savior, because he was mentioned early in the story as a third year who could surpass Gojo along with Okotsu. There's so much dialogue and exposition, and then the story cuts away just as Geto is leaving. The next chapter skips forward and tells you the aftermath. This was so abrupt and unsatisfying for such an amazing arc. In conclusion, the arc was great because it mostly did its job as a super arc, capitalized upon the steadily building rivalry between Yuji and Mahito, had amazing fights with creative abilities, and a nice touch of chaos to keep things unpredictable. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and check out my manga for free online. If you enjoy my content, please consider donating to my Patreon. All important links will be in the description.